Welcome to episode 15 of the Party Wagon podcast. I can't believe I'm saying that. Episode 15 already. But I am your host, Brendan, from the YouTube channel Brendan's Rambles.
And I'm Eric from the YouTube channel Know You Grow Up. And we're pretty light on news this week. I feel like that's definitely going to change in our next couple episodes as things start to ramp up. And we're actually only 2 recordings away from doing our first the Mutant Mayhem review episode, which I feel like our channel has kind of been building up to this entire time. I feel like it was kind of our main couple points of news and topics for the first couple episodes. So it's going to be weird to be in like the post cycle of that after the movie actually comes out.
Yeah, for sure. Because like you said, we've been building up to it for so long. I guess, we started in 2023. I'm like, what's the biggest Turtles news of 2023? Well, they get a new major motion picture. It is going to be weird. And we're going to, probably not have the, not going to say we're not going to have long news segments anymore, but they might not be as long after Mutant Mayhem's gone, because Mutant Mayhem has eaten up a lot of time in our news sections for most of these podcasts so far.
Yeah, so it'll pretty much just be down to action figure stuff. Best case scenario, we get like an ongoing series or something that we can talk about regularly. That would be like a dream come true. That would give us literally endless content. But yeah, we'll pretty much just be down to high-end figures, because again, like this line that's even out right now, it's just a huge push for the movie, but this is essentially all that's planned for the moment. So I don't know, the hype just feels like it's really, really, really ramping up. Like people have already been going to the movie store to get the popcorn buckets, and people are getting boxes from Pizza Hut. Like they're starting to go nuts. I think tickets go, as of the day of this recording, they're going on sale tomorrow, which will be Thursday the 12th. What's today? Thursday the 13th. So,
the 13th, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to try to grab mine tomorrow, actually, as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't even know they were going on sale that early, but it makes sense because they're pushing a lot for this movie. I do kind of fear that they spoiled the entire movie with recent TV spots that they did, which they do a lot with movies these days, especially kids' movies. But you never know. There might be some stuff we don't see coming. The worst kept secret, I think, in Hollywood right now is that Superfly is definitely Baxter Stockman. I feel like I would be very shocked if Superfly is not Baxter Stockman, because I even saw because you can't see too well. The art style is so insane. You can't see certain features of characters in the movie footage. But when I saw the action figure for Superfly, he has the tufts of hair on the side of his head exactly like the image of Baxter Stockman had. Baxter Stockman, when they first showed off his logo, it was like a green sweater. Like his logo, you can see Superfly has a ripped green sweater and white shirt on, like when he's mutated. So it's like, I would be absolutely shocked if Baxter Stockman was not turning into Superfly, because it clearly looks like he's the same guy. And one thing I do have to say I guess we're just going to jump right into the TV spots because there's a lot to say. So we see the super mutated Superfly a lot in the trailers, because they basically reveal that he turns into like a giant kaiju mutant at some point. He has like these ripples on his chin, almost like Thanos, that kind of makes him look like that big blue whale kaiju they showed in that one concept art picture. So I almost wonder if that monster in that picture was just a concept for the main villain. Like they always had this idea that the main villain was going to mutate into keep mutating into a bigger and bigger monster. Yeah, I guess that's what that was, even though it looked like a whale.
I kind of assumed those were the lines that was the road we were going to go down anyway. Like it just felt like that's kind of what this was all leading up to. And I feel like even before this, wasn't there a glimpse of Baxter being giant?
I don't remember.
Am I crazy?
Baxter, we're supposed to pretend.
Or not Baxter, sorry, Superfly, I meant.
Yes, we did get a shot of him giant. Yeah, we did.
Okay.
It didn't tell you that he's Superfly, but he has the red eyes and the wings and the bug skin and everything. Yeah. So it's like, oh, that's clearly Superfly. But yeah, they haven't told us yet that that's Superfly, but we can tell at this point. We've seen so much of it.
Because I haven't really looked at it in depth either, but the sewer layer playset that's coming out, does that have a cardboard cutout of a giant Superfly on it too?
It might. Actually, I think you're right. I think it might actually. I'm not 100%. Don't quote me.
Okay, because I feel like that part has been spoiled for me before this point too.
It definitely was in a previous. I think the first trailer that showed off like Mondo Gecko and all of them and Ray Fillet, that trailer showed the giant Superfly at one point.
Okay, gotcha.
But he wasn't. They didn't say like, "Oh, this is Superfly," but it's pretty obvious.
Also, getting back to the TV spots here. So I made a lot of predictions, and the Baxter and Superfly being the same person was kind of one, and then the other one was them somehow going. I mean, this wasn't really a prediction. This was what everybody thought from the original teaser of the Notebook, that somehow they were going to have something to do with high school. Like, we all thought that maybe that's what was going to be the original plot for the movie, is they were going to somehow go to high school. But I feel like there's definitely going to be an angle where they work that in, and maybe they do the talent show in disguises or something like that now.
Yeah, because we got this spot with April, like sneaking them into the high school after hours and stuff. And like it just shows how much they really want to go, especially Mikey. And even in the last trailer we had, they had the turtles were all sitting like in the den, like at night, and they were talking about like, yeah, I wish I could go to school. I wish I could have a girlfriend and all this stuff. Like they were talking about like how cool it would be to be human and stuff. So I think my prediction is that while we originally said that might be the plot of the movie, I think that's going to be the end of the movie. Like it's going to end where like the turtles and maybe like Mondo Gecko and stuff are like going to high school now, and like they're accepted. Like after they save the city, mutants are accepted or something, and maybe that's how it will end.
I feel like that's what it's leading up to. I feel like at this point, like, or at the beginning of the movie, no one's going to know about mutants at all, and then they're going to realize the turtles exist, and then the turtles realize this whole other gang of mutants actually exists. So I feel like that's what it's going to be, is kind of integrating them into regular society. And because that would be a good route for the TV show to go down that hasn't really been explored yet. Like, what if the turtles could just go about their lives and do everyday things inside the city? Like, that's never an angle that's been used with the turtles at all. They've always had to hide themselves away because society would never understand them.
Yeah, I think definitely the TV show will just be like mutant high, basically.
Yeah.
The only thing that's a little weird about that is like, then why the hell do they have to be ninjas anymore?
I feel like Baxter Stockman is never going to stop trying to take over the city. And also, I saw this in a news article. I don't know what site it was from, how reliable it is, but it says Shredder's supposed to debut in the second movie, and supposedly there's no Shredder appearance at all in this one.
I had a feeling there wouldn't be a Shredder. It feels like they're trying very hard to like distance themselves from that usual trope. Yeah, I would be shocked if they got to a second movie and we still didn't see him, because like you got to have the Shredder.
I mean, he is the main primary protagonist. Like, it just, I like that you can make new characters and stuff like that. Like, I've enjoyed like Hob. There's characters that I really enjoy that are new. But I don't know, like, I just feel like Turtles isn't Turtles without Shredder. Like, it's just a huge piece of the ingredients list that's not there if you don't have Shredder. Like, I don't know. Turtles just aren't Turtles without Shredder.
Yeah, and a lot of people will use the argument that like, oh, well, Shredder died in the first issue of Mirage. It's like, yeah, but if you kept reading Mirage, he comes back.
Yeah, like 3 times.
Like, they keep banking on Shredder. And even in a lot of iterations of Turtles, even when Shredder is dead, it's like there's still like he's still looming over it. There's Karai and the Foot Clan and all this stuff. So it's like the Shredder is kind of ever present in the world of Turtles. So to not have the Shredder is a little weird.
And again, I've never watched Rise. There was no real Shredder in Rise either. He was something completely different in that, wasn't he?
So there was technically a Shredder. So he didn't appear until like the late into season. I think about halfway through season 2, you find the Shredder armor, and it's like the spirit of this old guy, the Shredder, is like haunting the armor. Okay. So he's like this big monster suit of armor. It was very weird. It was like this demon suit of armor. That movie and that show was all about like demons and monsters, this world of demons and magic and stuff. But he was technically in there, but he's the craziest take on the Shredder ever. So
okay. Story checks out.
Yeah. So they always eventually build to Shredder. And again, I was saying how I saw a lot of similarities with this movie and Rise. I think that's maybe another cue they might have taken from Rise. Is like, maybe don't blow your load with the Shredder right away. Maybe build up to the Shredder.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just always like the strategy of lead off with Shredder and then start to bring in everyone else. But I feel like Baxter over the years, because especially in the IDW run, like Baxter is just as prominent of a character as Shredder, if not even more almost in the beginning. And I do like that they're going back to using Baxter as like not just a little lackey to Shredder. Like my least favorite version of Baxter is without a doubt, honestly, our version, the 87 animated series, because he is just like a little sniveling weasel, you know what I mean? And I like it when he's kind of like running things with an iron fist, and like he is just like this crime lord. Like, I don't know, that's the Baxter that I like.
Yeah, that's definitely the Baxter I like better. It's weird. They've kind of always like jumped back and forth between the two of them. I think the oddest is probably 2003 Baxter, because he's kind of a mix of the two. Like, he is the Shredder's bitch, but at the same
Is he
time,
black or white in that one?
He's black in that one.
Okay. So is the original 87 the only time he's ever not black then?
Yeah. The 87 one and the 88 toy line. I guess the toy line, you can say, well, he has red hair, so I guess he's white. Right. But well, his hands were white in the toy. But
oh yeah, yep.
That's it. Yeah. Aside from that, he's always been black. But yeah, the 2003 one, he's kind of a mix of the two, because he is like this really dangerous mastermind. But when the show starts off, he is kind of just the Shredder's bitch also. But they do a lot of what they did in other versions, like Last Run and stuff, where like his body kind of keeps getting replaced by cybernetics over time. Whereas like eventually in the 2003 show, he's just like a head, and then he has like all robotic like extensions and stuff. But
so I wonder if that's kind of where they got the thing for the Last Ronin then.
I think so. Honestly, they might have got it from the 2003 show.
Yeah, I never knew that, because again, I've never watched the 2003 show, but now that you're saying that, that does make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, but yeah, so I'm pretty okay actually with like, again, I like Turtle starting with Shredder, but I'm pretty okay with this one not starting with him, because A, it's already such a crowded movie, and B, when you think of Turtles movie series and stuff, like they've all started with Shredder. Almost all the shows started with Shredder. I'm kind of okay with starting with like a smaller scale story. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think of a good parallel for another super villain, but it's hard to. But it's like, so if you want to do a Spider-Man story, you could just start with Green Goblin. Or you could start with like some of the smaller thugs, or like say a Batman movie. You could start with smaller thugs first and then work your way up to Joker instead of doing Joker right away in the first movie. And that's kind of how I feel with Shredder. It's like, we've seen Shredder kick off Turtles a lot, so maybe we should build to him. Not necessarily he's the Thanos of this world or anything, but, you know, maybe wait a movie or two before we start bringing him in.
Yeah, because I mean, we also have Krang to expand upon too, so they do have a lot of room to grow. And honestly, I hope like all the mutants do kind of become good guys too, and maybe Bebop and Rocksteady like turn once Shredder shows up or something like that. Like, there's a lot of ways they can go with it. And I'm kind of excited to just see Superfly for one thing, because I'm just very excited to see Ice Cube in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. And I know Ice Cube is not the Ice Cube late 80s and the early 90s. And he's done, I mean, what was the road trip movie he was in? Like, he's done a lot of stuff. We'll say, yeah, he's done a lot of stuff like that. But just the fact that Ice Cube is a voice in a Turtles movie, that just has me excited. He's probably one of the voice actors that I'm the most excited about, honestly.
Yeah, I'm picturing like Ice Cube right out of Friday, like just stepping into this.
Yeah, I'm picturing 21 Jump Street when he's the boss. I don't know why that's how I'm picturing him being in this one.
It's gonna be interesting though. It is weird though, because I'm pretty positive, you know, Baxter is turning into Superfly. But it is weird that they would get two huge named actors to voice the two different versions.
That's the throw for me, is the voice differences. That's what's the weirdest part. And also, like, Baxter's human form, I feel like this is like, we haven't really touched on this either. He almost looks like kind of like a homeless guy or something like that.
He looks disgusting. Yeah, he's balding worse than I am. He's got like just tufts of hair on the side. He looks
like a little Rat King-esque almost, you know what I mean?
You know, like, he is actually, yeah. I see. I don't know if he's actually homeless or if he just looks gross because the mutagen he keeps using to turn into Superfly is like fucking with him.
Okay, yeah. So it might be a back and forth thing then, and maybe not like a once Baxter to Superfly type of situation. It might be like he can like go back and forth between forms. So you're right. He still might have that little like gross sticky fly in him.
And I'm thinking that's maybe why they do different voice actors, because Ice Cube, when he's playing Superfly, you can hear in the trailers, he's having a blast. Like, he just sounds so confident and like just forward and everything. Like, he just like swaggers on in there and everything. So I think like they want Superfly to have like that fun, cool, like confidence. Like almost like Spider-Man. When Peter Parker's Peter Parker, he's a nerd. But when he's Spider-Man, he's shit talking everybody and stuff. I think it's almost like maybe like we're gonna have kind of like this meek kind of voice for Baxter, and then when he's Superfly, he's all I'm Ice Cube. What about it, kind of thing. So I think that might be what they're doing. But there are shots in the recent TV spots where they're all fighting the giant Superfly. They're all fighting over a plastic bag that has a glowing mutagen canister in it. So they're all trying to like to keep that away from Superfly. So I'm guessing he is continually taking mutagen.
Yeah, he probably wants it. And that's probably what it's going to be then. And then he just starts overdosing it in his last run at it. And that's when he turns into Superfly.
And he looks disgusting as Superfly. I'm getting vibes from like Akira vibes. Remember, like, have you ever seen Akira?
When the dude in the hospital like starts, yeah.
It's like, oh god, that's disgusting. But it's the same thing. It's like to get more power, you just like you go too far.
Right.
Although Superfly's doing it out of his own free will. Tetsuo was not that nice, but yeah, they seem to have spoiled everything, but I'm still hyped to see it. We've seen that like Mondo Gecko is going to become friends with Mike. They're like, yo, I dig your vibe, dude. I dig your vibe, dude. We both dig each other's vibes and stuff. And it's like, that makes sense. That's what Mondo should be. He's supposed to be like Mike's best friend. But yeah, about all the mutants going good. I do kind of hope Bebop and Rocksteady do remain bad, because good guy Bebop and Rocksteady is just weird to me. And I'm almost thinking that a post-credit scene or mid-credit scene for the movie will be like, you won't see him, but like you'll hear Shredder approach Bebop and Rocksteady and recruit.
I feel like it has to. I feel like that has to be the turn for it. Like it would shock me if that doesn't happen. Like I said, I don't think it'll happen in the movie, but I mean, even at the end of the first Iron Man movie, when you see Thor's helmet or Thor's hammer, you know what I mean? Like something along those lines.
Yeah, I think it will be something like that. It might even, Shredder might not even appear. It might just be like a foot soldier appears and like hands them like a letter with the Foot Clan.
That's a good, it might just be a foot then, because I bet they'll probably go the whole movie without talking about the foot. And I bet dude, I'm putting my money there. I feel like that's a good call right there.
Yeah. So we're definitely having a focus on mutants though. So I think like that's that would be good to hint the at the foot soldiers at the end, because it's kind of like, well, you got your mutant movie, now you get your ninja movie, and I guess we're kind of also getting our teenage movie. So they're, for the first time ever, they're checking off every single thing in the title of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and giving it to us. So.
And again, like I've said this probably for the last 3 or 4 podcasts in a row, just the closer we get, the more excited I get. And like I feel like we are just at the pinnacle of the hype, because not only are we getting all this merchandise dropping, we're getting action figures, we're getting Pizza Hut's got a deal, we're having what's the other food deal? Say what?
Cereal.
And people are already starting to go to the movie theaters to get like the popcorn boxes and the cups and stuff like that. And there is a collector's cup, so that's why I want to get tickets right away, because I want that collector's cup. If there's one piece of merchandise I get from this movie, I just want the damn collector's cup.
I didn't know there was. I'm getting that collector's cup too. I have to. They have like, they're going to have like these special Slurpees that are like green apple. I don't know why they keep pushing apple for the Ninja Turtles, but I guess just because it's green.
You're gonna have to get it.
They're gonna have this green apple one. They're gonna have a variant also. So the green apple one's already for the Mutant Mayhem. They have a variant of that and just like a soda, I think, that comes with green Pop Rocks inside of it, which sounds horrible. Like, that sounds like I would just choke to death drinking that thing.
Wait, what was the urban legend that used to kill you if you did Pop Rocks and what? Diet Coke? Is that what it was?
I think it was Diet Coke. So I know Mentos and Coke don't
that does happen. That really does happen. If you put it in there, it will explode. But yeah, I mean, do you remember the first movie, or there might have been more than one urban legend, but that was one of the things they did in there, I'm pretty sure. Like,
oh, really?
I did that all the time as a kid, and I never even thought about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's crazy when I think back to being a kid, how much you'd like be eating candy and drinking soda at the same time. Like now that would be like sweetness overkill if I was doing that. But as a kid,
I'm not gonna lie, I do that to myself regularly. Like,
oh, really?
I make myself sick all the time still. Like I just can't help it. Every Saturday, like I just want to eat a ton of candy, drink some pop. Like I'm just a turd on the weekends.
I mean, I definitely have a sweet tooth. I'll eat like a lot of cakes and ice cream and shit like that. And I eat a lot of unhealthy stuff, a lot of like, deep fried stuff, a lot of red meat and stuff, but you only live once.
Exactly. Yeah, so I actually went to my Walmart yesterday, and my store still doesn't have the display out for
Oh, really?
Mutant Mayhem, yeah, and it looks like almost everybody's does. I'm pretty sure Monday, I think, might have been like the official release date at Walmart for them. The only thing I do want is I probably am going to get the 4-pack of the turtles that look like the Playmates turtles, just because it comes in one 4-pack. Like, just grab them all at once. And I think that's going to be the one set of action figures I do get.
Maybe I might get those. That would be the most tempting one because, you know, Beachcomb and Mike reference and stuff.
Exactly.
But I'll see. I'll wait and see. I don't think they've actually announced or shown off any like giant Superfly action figure, but that would be a shame if they didn't do one.
Yeah.
But they have shown off some stuff. Like, so we mentioned, God, like how long ago was that now? Like 4 months ago, 3 months ago, whatever, that like there was those skateboarding turtles. And we didn't know what they were. We didn't know if they came off the skateboards or if they were permanently mounted to them or if they were individually articulated. We thought they were being made by McFarlane at one point.
Right.
They're finally coming out, and they do actually pop off the skateboards, and they are fully articulated. But then they're also like you were saying, remote controlled, and you can like make them do stunts and stuff. They come with like little skate park pieces, like ramps and like designs, and you can when you get all 4 of them, you can like put it together to build a skate park play set, which is pretty cool. And you can like, you know, play with them. And the skateboards are like that thick, but you know, it's still cool. It's the guy have all the electronics inside. But you pointed out, I didn't even know that they did them for the 87 Turtles too.
Yeah, so they've been available on Amazon, I want to say for like a week or 2 or something like that. I can't remember how long they've been available for. And I wasn't even sure if they were exactly the same because the ones in Amazon come in a box and the ones that are at Walmart just look like they're almost out of package pretty much. Like they just might be sitting on a piece of cardboard or something. Yeah, they're definitely not like sealed in a bubble or anything like that.
Oh, you know what? Maybe the ones on Amazon come with the skate park pieces and maybe the ones at Walmart don't.
Okay, yeah, because it looked like the way it was packaged, it looked like a lower price point item. So I don't even know if those might have been even just like a pull back and go. I wasn't sure if they were the same. I think you said they were called the same thing, so maybe they are. So I don't even know.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics because like when it comes to they are making 5 trillion products for Mutant Mayhem, and I know these are for the 87 ones, but like I just can't follow all of them that closely. Yeah, they do have the same title. I forget what it is. You know, we always come prepared for the podcast. I don't remember what the hell they're called. Yeah, I believe they're remote controlled. I believe they're also because they have like these big fat chunky bases on the skateboards. And they come with like a little remote, I believe, but they look cool. They look fun. I mean, I'm down for stuff like that because we've said this before. Turtles toys when we were kids were all about like the ingenuity and the play features and the crazy concepts they came up with. Like, oh, let's make these turtles water guns. Let's make these turtles swing their arms. Let's make these turtles swim. Let's make like all this crazy stuff. That stuff was a blast when I was a kid. It was so fun. That's really what kind of pushed the sublines a lot is that like they were like these special toys that had all these special features. So I think it's really cool that they are making toys like this, like these little skate park play sets. And like, even if you're not into like the sewer play set, you might have fun with the skateboards and everything. So
getting back to who these products are actually supposed to be for, kids do appreciate crap like that. You know what I mean? Like I love stupid stuff like that. Like any gimmick I'm a sucker of, like even glow in the dark, like there's nothing special about it. And I still love it. Like every gimmick worked on me. And I don't know. I feel like that's how most kids are because kids aren't that smart. And I apparently just didn't turn into that smart of an adult either. But I'm excited about it to do like, because again, even if it's not for me, it's just cool that they are trying to reach literally every level of fan right now. Like there is just like, again, I hate to say it. I hope this movie blows up. I hope we get like an ongoing series and Turtle gets like its second biggest resurgence of all time. Like that is ideally what I would like to happen. But I feel like at the same time, we could be sitting literally at the peak of Turtle Mania second coming right now. Like that. And that's just what I'm worried about is like, this is going to be the pinnacle year and we're just not going to see anything like this because I know we talked about this before too. We're both fixated on Turtles. So we're both very aware of what we're going on, but I don't know. I just feel like this is a bigger push than I've seen for any kids movie in a very long time as far as merchandise goes.
Yeah. I mean, we were just talking before this about how like I put a video out about some DreamWorks movies recently, and it's like neither one of those movies was really pushed, and one of them was a spinoff of Shrek, like Puss in Boots too. So it's like it was pushed, but not like nowhere near the level of this. And I think a lot of times it just has to be like a big franchise to push. The studios just don't care if it's not a big franchise, which is why this and Spider-Verse probably got the biggest push. Oh, and Mario of any animated movie this year, because those three are built on some of the biggest multimedia franchises. Yeah, it just seems like Mutant Mayhem, they are going all out. And it almost seems like an intentional push, because again, we've talked about this. Rogan and his team seem like they were legit Turtles fans. It seems like they were literally like obsessed with Turtles during Turtle Mania. And it kind of seems like a deliberate push to recreate a lot of facets of that era, like the Pizza Hut sponsorship, the cereal, the collector cups, the action figure line, the play features, the play sets, the motorcycle toys, the skateboard toys. Like, it just really seems like they're trying to re-emulate that, like that portion of Ninja Turtles. Like, they're trying to almost let kids know, like, this is what your parents have been talking about for years. This is what it was like, kind of thing.
Well, the funny thing is, though, as I just feel like it's all the parents that are getting the most excited, though. You know what I mean?
Like, I don't talk to kids.
I guess that's true.
I don't have kids. I have 3 siblings. One of my sisters is finally having her first kid this month. So, you know, her daughter's not going to be into it. She's going to be, you know, a day old when the movie comes out. So I don't know particularly what kids are into these days and what kids aren't into. I assume they're all into, like, you know, Marvel and stuff. But I don't know if kids are getting really hyped for this movie, but yeah, I can see that adult Turtles fans are getting hyped for this movie. Specifically, people who grew up in the early 90s with Ninja Turtles, like us, are getting very hyped for this movie. But I don't know if it has a presence in the world of children.
Thousands of adults go, they're gonna drag their kids with them, and it might just be a thing where, I mean, this could be a turning point. You take your kids to see this thing, and they're like, whoa, this is dope. So the fact that adults are this excited is a very, very, very good thing, because again, even if it's not catching the kids' attentions now, once they actually go there and sit through a 90-minute, how long is the runtime on this movie? I haven't even thought about that. Has it been announced yet?
I think it has. I want to say it's not that long. I want to say it's like an hour and a half.
Dude, good. Just like Mario movie. That's exactly like, don't overstay your welcome. Get in, get out, do what you got to do.
But don't quote me on that. I might not know that for sure. We might be congratulating it, and it'll be 2.5 hours.
I mean, honestly, it's Turtles, so this is one of the times I will not bitch about a movie being over 2 hours long.
Yeah, I mean, especially since they have like 21 main characters.
Yeah,
I believe they said it's going to be around 90 minutes. I think so. Oh, I also just want to throw in real quick. We're basically wrapping up our news segment already. But I just want to throw in real quick. They showed a lot of shots of TCRI people. And they're like fully dressed in like these black SWAT suits and stuff. And we've already seen the Utrom woman in a poster. Mm-hmm. And it shows like Splinter kicking a bunch of TCRI guys, which is cool that Splinter is going to join the action in the movie. My theory is all the TCRI guys are Utroms, like in the original comic.
I think so too. They just look very, like Men in Black-ishy. Like, I think that's the way it's going to be. Yep.
Because we already know that the main female like leader of them is going to be an Utrom. So it's like, the rest of them are all these generic just guys in black. It's like, you're all freaking Utroms. I know. Yep. Oh, I know. And I wonder if they're even going to do it where like her actual, like her human name is what we're hearing, like her front name, and then maybe she's actually named Krang. They might do that in the movie.
What's her name? Her last name's Utrom, right? What's her name?
Yeah. I don't remember. It's like Linda Utrom or something
like that. So, not a very good cover up. And I feel like it is going to be one of those very obvious things where she's like a very terrible human, like acting like a human, like when Kang and Kodos are trying to act like humans.
Yeah, it could end up being really fun. Yeah. I do still stand by my original theory, though, I had that I think while it shows the Turtles and Splinter like beating up TCRI guys, I'm pretty sure it's going to end up where they're actually heroes. And they're just trying to recover the canisters of ooze that Baxter has, because they're probably from their world, Dimension X or something. And they're probably just trying to recover them. And then at the end of the movie, there will be like an agreement between the Turtles. They're like, oh, you were just after the same thing the whole time. They're like, the substance is too dangerous to be on Earth. We need to clean it up and get it back to our world. And I think that's going to happen. I think the Utroms will turn out to actually be good in the movie.
Yeah, it'll probably be a situation where you think they're bad, and then it gives you that flip flop, just like the 2007 movie, except
Yeah.
they telegraphed that from a mile away.
Yeah, I think it will be. I think they're definitely going to go for that because I don't think they're going to make Superfly and the Utroms the bad guys. That would be kind of messy, especially since they're really hyping up Superfly as the villain.
Yeah.
Like even a lot of the merchandise, it shows when it shows the villains, it shows Superfly front and center, and then Bebop and Rocksteady on either side of him. So
yeah, and then that's probably what it'll be: is all the mutants, all the Utroms, everybody has to come together for this master plan to stop Superfly.
I don't know why, but like I think I've said this on a podcast before, but for some reason my mind instantly jumps to Dude, Where's My Car, where there was like Ashton Kutcher.
That's the aliens are what I thought of when I thought of the Utroms too, honestly. Just like really, really, really dumb, terrible at being human.
Yeah.
Aliens. That's exactly
Like
where my mind went to.
The two buff guys, yeah. Yeah, that's like, and basically Superfly is like the equivalent of, I don't know, I guess like the sexy alien girls or whatever,
Yep.
like the actual evil ones. That movie was weird as hell.
This is April O'Neil, Channel 6 News, and you're watching the Party Wagon Podcast.
So we're going to be comparing Neca to Super7, and we're going to do it from a lot of different angles. And I'm coming up on the 1-year anniversary of my channel right now. It's the 17th or the 18th. I think I posted my first video, and my third video ever was about Neca and Super7. And at that time, it was about the Toon line and then the Super7 Ultimates line. And I just talked about how much I loved both of those lines. And at that time, in my mind, those lines were like neck and neck equals. Like I definitely did like the Super7 figures individually more, but I was really into the Toon line. Now I couldn't think that is further from the truth. And it is crazy how it only took a year for me, or for my opinions, to just change so greatly.
It's extremely complicated for me, which we're going to get into. But just as far as like company practices and like, you know, keeping up with releasing products and stuff, there's a clear winner here. But we're going to have to really get into the nitty gritty with this because there's a lot to be said about NECA and Super7. I mean, like, Playmates, yeah, they're the key, you know, Turtles toy producer, but like, let's not beat around the bush here. Like for the past 5 years, 4 years, let's say 4, just to be generous, past 4 years, Super7 and NECA have been the names in Turtles toy collecting.
So when I got back into collecting, Playmates was what I was after. Like I was not even aware of any modern action figure situation going on. The NECA lines had just started. Like the movie Turtles had just hit GameStop. The Toon Turtles had just gotten their re-releases, so I think we were just on to where Bebop and Rocksteady had come out, and then the first one I got was the Shredder and Krang 2-pack. So I've been with both the lines pretty much since they both started, and they both just started out very, very, very slow and modestly, but NECA just really started to ramp things up, and it seemed like NECA was focused on a lot of like horror and Alien and Predator and stuff like that. And then once they realized Turtles was going gangbusters, I feel like they did a hard swerve and put all of their focus into Turtles. And I mean, look at how many different NECA lines we have right now. We have the movie line, the Toon line, the video game line, multiple comic lines. We have Archie, Mirage, and you know, we have IDW technically with the Ronin. We have the Universal Monsters mashup line. We have quarter scale figures. Like I feel like NECA would not be what it is right now without the Turtles. I feel like it is almost important for them as it is for or maybe not as important as it is for Playmates, but it's crucial to their brand at this point.
Yeah, and I think NECA's bread and butter is Ninja Turtles and horror. I think those are the two things that those are the two categories they just get by on, because you know they make figures for everything horror under the sun, which is funny because that's actually supposed to be Super7's thing also. But yeah, Turtles is such a big part. Turtles is like, people like their horror figures. Everyone buys, you know, their Predator figures and their Alien figures and all that stuff, and the Universal Monster Ultimates and stuff, but it's like that stuff sits on shelves, whereas like the stuff that just flies by is Turtle stuff. And it's starting to sit on shelves a little more now. Now that we're getting to some of the deep cuts, Turtles has just been like their biggest push. I think like commercially, like they just push every time they have an event, like it's mostly Turtles stuff and everything. So I think Turtles is definitely like their biggest brand right now.
And it seems like whenever they roll out another brand, it's a very slow start with them. Like they've added like the Dinosaurs TV show. I think they're just put out the figures for that for the first time.
I want those.
They do look great. They are some great looking action figures. And again, I feel like going back to the movie live action Turtles, I feel like they're very good at doing those suits. The other big line they have is gargoyles as well, and they don't seem to run into the problems where Super7 does, to where it seems like NECA can also slowly but surely take on things, and it doesn't really seem to slow down their Turtles production, even though like they've been putting a lot into gargoyles. But I feel like these last 2 years we've gotten more Turtle stuff than the 2 years before it by a long shot.
Yeah, for sure, because the gargoyles is starting pretty heavy for what they did, but even then it's like it's more like how the Turtles line was when it was starting out. The gargoyles things are a whole other discussion. They look really nice. I'm not going to collect them, but they look really nice. I have heard some people complain about the wings, like there's no,
they're big,
like they're just big static wings, and
but
anyway, because when NECA started off with Turtles, they started off with the movie line just with the quarter scale, the big ones. And I remember looking at those and being like, if they make them smaller, if they make them normal size, I'll buy them. And they did, and I bought them. But my first figure by NECA at all was the movie Shredder. And
nice.
then I got movie Splinter and Foot Soldier, and then I got Bebop and Rocksteady from the Toon line.
Yeah, so that's funny because Shredder was my first NECA figure that I ever got too.
Oh, really? We both got that's such a sweet figure. Like I had to get that. So
yeah, because again, I was really into Playmates, and I was looking for Playmate stuff on eBay, and then all of a sudden this Shredder and Splinter just started popping up, and it was like GameStop exclusive. So I just called my GameStop, and they're like, "We're out, but the mall one has one." I just went there, grabbed him off the shelf, and it was like one of the happiest days of my life.
I actually pre-ordered him from my GameStop. I like put money down, so like a month later when he came out, I like went in one day and they just gave him my Shredder. So God, they were so cheap back then. He was like $20.
Yeah, I think was it 20 or 25? I can't remember what they were when they first started.
I think
out.
it was like around like 24 maybe.
Okay.
But they were so cheap. It's like for an Ultimates now for like $40 now. So, but yeah, they were around for a while, but I got into them pretty much when I saw the Bebop and Rocksteady announced. I was like, all right, I'm in. Like, I got to start doing this. But yeah, they've just multiplied so much over time. And like you said, they keep getting these new brands. They keep getting these new lines coming out. And they don't slow down. If anything, Turtles is still speeding up. So it's like NECA is definitely on the up and up. Like they don't start adding to a license like immensely until they are financially able to do so, clearly. Because they start off very modest with everything, very like low key with each property they get, and if that one's successful and sells a lot and they make money off of it, they can start pouring that money into getting more characters and stuff from that line.
So that first year I was into Turtles, I got for the Toon line, I got the Shredder and the Krang set early that year, and then I think that summer is when Wave 3 came out, which was the Casey and Slash or Bash, I can't remember one, the April, and then the Leatherhead and Slash. And then I think we got one more wave at the end of that year too that had like the Triceratons. And then I think Krang might have came right at the end. So even in that first year, we only got 3 releases of 3 characters. So I mean, that's still kind of even a lot of characters. Like at that point, even it seems like
we also got Trag and Granitor that year.
Yep, that's the other big set that came out.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we actually got a lot of content just for like, and those are some deep dive characters too. Like those are some like they're not the craziest deep dives, but like, getting Granitor in like that early on in the line was pretty crazy. Getting Roadkill Rodneys that early in the line was pretty nuts. So they were already doing pretty crazy stuff that first year. And that wasn't the first year, but that was the first. That's almost the unofficial first year. That's like when the line really got the status that it has now.
Yeah. Because I want to say before, well, that was the time too when most stores were only getting like one case of 3 figures, and then once in a while you'd get a second case of 3 figures at some point. But they were running figures in much, much, much lower numbers back then as well, which again caused a lot of strife with a lot of people because that was 3 summers ago, and people have just now been able to get their Casey's and the Foot Soldier it came with.
Yeah, they were back then when I got them. I had to just buy them online, all of them, like for ridiculous prices, like way more than they're supposed to go for in stores. Oh, they also, I think, did Splinter and Baxter that year also.
Yep. So I think that was like because I got Splinter and Baxter and Krang right after the first of the year when I was, or actually, no, I was at home on Christmas, my Christmas vacation. So I got it right around Christmas time that year.
Okay. And Metalhead.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah. So they cranked out a lot once they got going. But again, they dipped their toes with the re-releases of the Turtles 2-packs and then sorry. The original releases were a turtle and a villain. So it was a turtle and Shredder, a turtle and Krang, and then a turtle and Bebop, a turtle and Rocksteady. And
no. It wasn't Bebop and Rocksteady. It was just Foot Soldier.
Oh, yeah. Yep. You're right. The Foot Soldier came with each of them. And then Bebop and Rocksteady were like the next release after that. And then I feel like after that, they're like, okay, we feel like this line has some legs. Now we're going to start to push it.
Yeah, for sure. I do feel like when we both got on around the time Bebop and Rocksteady were added, that was kind of around the time I think most people got on. And that was also around the time that NECA was like, okay, we're going in on this. Like before that, they were dipping their toes in, saying, let's release all the characters that everybody always releases and see how they do. And I think when they did that, they were like, all right, we're committed to this now. Like, this is going to happen.
I'm pretty sure it takes like at least a year of development to make an action figure or something like that. So they definitely had their third wave figured out at some point, even before. And it just like, once it did well, they must have gave it the go. But one thing that I do want to commend NECA for too, is that it might not happen immediately. They might get torn apart on social media, but they have done a really good job at coming back around with sets and giving people a second chance. I know there's a lot of people that are going to argue against that, but the fact that they did bring back the Casey 2-pack after all this time was a really good move on their part.
The Casey one was definitely really good because I think that's one of like the big characters that a lot of people missed out on. I didn't think he was going to come back. I thought like if anything, it might be like what they did with April and just like what you were saying, let's make a new Casey. But I am glad that they brought him back because it does show that they do know that some of their figures have been very hard to find and they do want to give you a chance to get them. I still need to get Toon, Toka, and Razar. I'm still missing those guys, but and I know we've had fans who have actually offered to get them for me, but I appreciate that. But yeah, there's definitely some that are still kind of hard to get, like Movie Toka and Razar. And they made it very easy to get those guys initially. But if you weren't into the line yet then and got into it later after you saw reviews of them, it's like you were kind of screwed because they were very hard to get. And they have
done 2 releases of Toka and Razar so far.
Oh, okay.
And I guarantee they do a third. Like because why would you not? They completely control the supply and demand because it's an exclusive to them, you know what I mean? So they don't have to worry about any stores buying it for them. They can just run their pre-order. They have the tooling done. And especially with the Secret of the Ooze push that's coming right now. So we just got the Turtles, Kino's about to come out. I could see them getting reran around here soon because, again, kind of switching gears to the movie line, it doesn't have the depth that the Toon line has at all. And that's the one line where I've realized that I do not give a shit about every deep cut character for sure because I look at the Oroku Saki and the Mato Yoshi figures, and they do nothing for me, man. Like, I have them, like, tucked away as far back in my display as possible now. Like, they really are some boring-ass action figures. And I remember getting them being like, oh, man, this is so cool. They're in the movie for, like, 1 second. What a deep cut. But the more I look at them on my shelf, I'm just like, what even are these? Like, these do nothing for me.
Yeah, like I've said, I've seen them in the store so many times now. Like, every 2 weeks I see them in like a Walmart or something. I just never grab them. Just like, I don't care. Like, I don't know. I'm good without those. There's obviously always deep cuts they can do. They can do the professor from the second movie, and maybe I'd get maybe if he came with the Bart Simpson glass, maybe I'll grab him. But
see, I wouldn't even consider him a deep cut. I feel like he's a main character from the second movie.
Yeah,
so
he
makes
is.
sense. But again, like Hamato Yoshi and Rokusaki, you see them for a little clip, and it's so black. You cannot see anything except for the light that peers into the room. You know what I mean? You
it's like the light reflecting off their sweaty bodies.
Yes, that's all you see of them.
But I mean, I feel like most people would consider them cooler potential for toys than the professor. So while the professor plays a bigger role, I don't think a lot of people are begging for an action figure of the professor.
Honestly, I'd rather have him. Maybe that's just me.
I would too, actually.
But
if
then
they
we get
made
back
him,
to
I might get him.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely would. But we get back to the first movie, and it's like if they made a Chief Mearns, is it Chief Stern? What's his name? I can't think of it.
Remember his name.
Yeah, anyway, if they make the police chief, like, I feel like I would have to get it, but I don't want it. You know what I mean?
You know what they should do is, I mean, it would be a lot of money, but they should do like a play set of the Foot Clan's little hangout area with all like the skate park,
the skateboard ramp, right?
They'd have to get a narc arcade and stuff in there, but and then it's got to come with two accessories. A pack of menthol and a pack of regular.
Right.
No, they'd never make that. But
Just like we're never getting that Sam Rockwell character. That's never happening either. That is a deep cut I would take. If they make him and he comes with 2 packs of smokes or 2 cartons of smokes, I would definitely get that.
I think NECA, so they announce all these crazy deep dive figures, but they do them. They deliver. NECA has almost never not release something they've shown off. Usually if they do show off something that they didn't release, it's like the Tiffany figure for the Toon line. It's like, we never told you we were going to release this. This is like just a test thing. This was never meant to be a product. We never promised you that this was coming. We'll keep going over what's good about NECA before we talk about what's good about the other company.
Okay, I was ready to switch into the bad because I didn't want people to think we were just going to be sucking NECA's dick the whole time. Yeah,
I want to do the good for both of them, I guess. So we'll talk about what's good about NECA. We'll talk about what's good about Super 7. Or we're not even just necessarily talking about what's good about them. We're just talking about like what they do. I guess we'll just talk about what they do.
Yeah, but again, what they do, I tend to like for the most part, to where the other company not as much. So yeah,
we'll talk about what they do and how we feel about what they do, and then we'll talk about their actual products and how we feel about their actual products. I guess because I don't think I'm when it comes to business practices, I'm very clear cut on who I think is better. But when it comes to the actual products, it's not very clear cut for me. It's very complicated for me. So the other company we're going to talk about is Super 7, obviously, as the name of the video implies, and we've said it already. Super 7.
I don't know, like it was a surprise or something.
Super 7. Super 7 is they did not start as early as NECA did. They started, I want to say 2019. They first showed off their figures, and I think they released in 2020. If I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right, because I remember, because it was the first year where I really got into them, and that would have been right in the beginning of the year 2020, because I started collecting in 2019 and I started collecting modern right at the beginning of 2020. And I remember it was around March that the Super 7 figures went up. It was like right around that vicinity. And when they first popped up, I didn't really understand what I was looking at. Like, I knew what NECA was. I knew I was into what they were doing. And I'm like, well, I'm into this company. I'm just going to buy figures from this. Why am I going to buy figures from Two Turtles companies? That's insane, said Eric, the early collector. But the more I started looking at it, and I can't even remember if I saw an in-hand with Brian Flynn or what it was, but once I realized, like, oh, these are just like Playmates figures, but way bigger with better articulation, I was like, I'm going to go in on these and see what it's all about. And I think it got pushed back a little bit. I want to say I got the figures somewhere in the middle of summer, I want to say, is when Wave 1 dropped. The glow-in-the-dark Baxter actually hit first, and I got that. It was a Comic-Con exclusive, and that was the first year of COVID, so everything got canceled, and they just put it up for order. And as soon as I had the first wave pre-order, but once I got that glow-in-the-dark Baxter, I'm like, dude, it's on. Like, this is one of the coolest action figures I've ever seen.
I didn't get the glow-in-the-dark one. There's a store by me that had it. I had an opportunity to, but like I've said before, I'm not going to go in on the color variants, because once I get one, I know I'm going to want them all. So, but Baxter was the first one I got as well. So I had pre-ordered Bebop already. Like Bebop wasn't out, but I had already pre-ordered him. I'm like, when I guess when I first saw them, it was on Instagram, and they started posting the pictures of like turtles things. I follow Kevin Eastman and stuff on Instagram. They posted like, you know, the Raph, Baxter, Splinter, and Foot Soldier, and I was looking at these and like everyone was really excited about them in the comments, and I was like, what the hell is this? I already have the Playmates ones. I don't need this shit. Like I already have the real turtles like Playmates figures and stuff. And I just thought like, oh, these are just bigger and they have more joints. But then they kept kind of like popping up and they kept kind of catching my eye, and I was like, these look pretty cool actually. And then they announced Wave 2 and they showed off Bebop, and I'm like, I gotta get Bebop. Like that's like my favorite figure from the first wave of the original line, and he looked so cool. Like he looked so badass. I was like, all right, I'll pre-order Bebop. When Rocksteady came out, I pre-ordered him too from Megalopolis Toys, and then they went under and became what's the new one? What are they called now? I don't even remember.
Premium DNA.
Premium DNA, which is stuff they make looks cool. The Battletoad stuff looks cool, but I'm not.
That's what drives me nuts, man. The Battletoads, Big Bad Toy Store had a set of Barnyard Commandos on super sale for one of their daily sales lately. But dude, I will never buy anything from that company. I had to fight to get my money back. That's a story for another day. But I was one of the people they tried fucking over. So
that company, they suck.
Yeah, we could talk about that one day, even if that's like a spin-off video or something. Yeah, we should do that someday,
because that's where I pre-ordered my Rocksteady from, and there was a nightmare with that. But anyway, so yeah, I remember I started seeing. I got Baxter first because I was in an FYE, and they actually sold the first wave in FYE, and they were just in the cardboard mailing boxes, so I didn't even notice them at first. I'm like, wait, that says Baxter Stockman on it.
Oh, they didn't even have them like displayed. They were in like the protected card. Okay.
So I brought the register. It was something like insane, like $80 or something. It was like $70 or $80. And I'm like, I have a lot of money right now. Fuck it. And I just bought them. And I took it home and I'm looking at it. I put them on the shelf. I'm like checking out the figure. I'm like, dude, this figure is fucking awesome. Yeah. It's so much. I think I had seen Toy Bro. I don't know if you follow Toy Bro. I think I had seen his video reviews of them recently and was thinking like, oh, those actually look pretty cool. And that's what swayed me to buy it. And then I had in hand, I'm like, this is fucking awesome. At that point, I was like, all right, I'm getting all of them. Like I got Splinter like the next week or something. And then I, pretty soon I got all of them. I think I got Raph the next week, and then I got Splinter. I think Foot Soldier took me a while to get, but yeah, then I was all in. And then I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm buying all of them. It's only 4 at a time. It's fine. Yeah, but they took a long time to come out. And it took me a long time to get that Bebop. When I got the Bebop, I was able to instantly get like Leo. I think I actually got Leo and Mutagen Man before Bebop even showed up in the mail. I was all in on the line at that point. It took a while, but they were pretty consistent with their releases at first. Like, you waited a long time, but you got very high quality, very chunky, sturdy figures with a ton of accessories and just amazing paint deco, amazing detailing. 4 Horsemen, best sculptors in the world. So it seemed worth it at first. Like, okay, you wait a little while, but you're getting something very premium. But we can't talk about the business plans of Super 7 without addressing all of the negatives that come along with it, whether it be extremely long wait times, extremely frequent delays, cancellations, constant retoolings, constantly bringing on new lines that they can't even handle because they can't handle the lines they already have. The licenses, I mean. Like, just, it's such a disaster. And
I thought we were supposed to be talking about the good of Super 7 right now.
We're talking about, well, no, but now we changed because I said we're going to talk about the good, but then I'm like, you know what? We're going to talk about the business side of both of them, and then we're going to talk about the product side of both of them.
Okay, gotcha.
So the business side of Super 7, I love Super 7's product. I'm just going to say it. I do like their figures probably more than NECA's figures. I love that's like still my favorite display in my room is my wall of Super 7. Like I just love looking at it. I love looking at those figures. But like I don't want to crap on this company at all. But like I have to be honest, and like their business practices are a nightmare.
Yeah. So at first, now that we've talked about NECA, I feel like we can compare as we're into Super 7. So at first, I definitely liked the way I got Super 7 figures a lot more. So yes, it was a long wait, but the first 2 years, they got them out within about a month of their original release date. So like I said, I think I got wave 1 right at the end of summer. I got wave 2 like right at the end of winter. And then same with wave 3 was like right at the end of summer, and wave 4 was right at the end of winter. So those first 4 waves are what we got in the first 2 years. And yeah, there was that big gap, but it was consistent. Like I didn't mind it because I knew I was going to get it eventually. Now I don't know when the hell we're going to get figures. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like that at all. And with NECA around that time, especially, it was a you better be to the store that day or the next day, or you're not getting that wave type of situation. And I was, because that was like the prime of my toy hunting for sure. Like, I was going to the stores every single day after work. So I was getting every NECA release because I was very determined to get them. And with Super 7, you just put up the pre-order and you didn't have to worry about it. And I did initially like that a lot more.
I did too, honestly. I mean, if it still worked, I would still like that more, to be honest.
Yes, exactly.
It was nice. It's like, yes, it's a large sum of money, but it's for 4 or sometimes 5. For me, it was always 4 premium quality figures. Like, I'm not gonna, dump on the quality of NECA. We'll talk about the quality of figures later on, but I do feel like you look at a NECA Toon figure, and you can't deny the quality of a Super 7 figure is worth more money than the quality of a standalone NECA Toon figure, I think.
Yeah, and again, like, I know, like, weight isn't always like, and I know that's like a thing with electronics. Like, if you pick up a speaker and it feels heavy, that means it's probably got good parts in it. You know what I mean? To where,
yeah,
like with an action figure, I feel like I pick up a plate or Super 7 figure and it just feels solid to me. Like, outside the hip joints, those sketch me out for sure. But like, I do feel like it is a good chunk of solid plastic to where, yeah, the joints might not have the best integrity, but I feel like you could chew on that plastic for a while and it'd be all right.
Yeah, Super 7 is definitely a chunky figure. You're getting like, a more dense figure. They're larger in scale generally. And just like the detailing and the paint detailing and the deco and everything, I just feel is leagues more involved than like the NECA Toon line, which is like, we'll get to that later, but NECA Toon line is what it is for a reason. But yeah, I just feel like you are paying for a little more of a premium product. So I'm okay with the higher price point.
Let's talk about the price point for a second too. So when this line first started, the figures were $45 for a pop. And that did seem crazy to me at the time. Because again, this was very early on in my collecting journey. And I was like, man, $45, that's pretty expensive. Like, and I think NECA figures were averaging between, again, I can't remember if the first time that the video game figures went up. I feel like those might have been 1999 when those went up.
I think so, yeah.
I think they were the Turtles in Time figures. I want to say those waves were $19.99 each when they first came up. So the difference between a $20 figure and a $45 figure, like, was huge to me at the time as well. But since then, both brands have crept up a lot, and Super 7 is kind of settled on this $55 price point. They'll charge more for their glow in the dark figures because apparently glow stuff costs way more now or something like that. But anyway, where NECA, I feel like they've honestly creeped up more in price to where their standard releases are between 35 and 40 to where they started at 20. Like, they're almost up almost 100% on some figures.
They are. Yeah. I think we complain about Super 7 more in like the turtle collecting fan base because it's just more money up front. It's just like, oh, wow, it already was 45. Now it's 55. What do you want now? A kidney? But it's like NECA's actually not even that much cheaper than them now. But
no, it's getting close. Like, they have, so like the Triceratops was a $50 figure. The Shredders was a $50 figure. Like, they're right there with Super 7.
Yeah, they are. There's a lot of them that are $50. I think Rex 1 was a $50 figure.
Yep, he was.
So it's like Rex 1, honestly, like height-wise, he's about the size of a Super 7 figure.
Yeah, and the Triceratops, if we ever get it, really excited to get the Super 7 Triceratops, because I feel like that will be kind of one of the first really good one-to-one comparisons for a Super 7 and a NECA figure, because they'll probably be about the same size, the same girth. So I feel like it's a lot more fair than comparing like a NECA Toon figure to the Super 7 turtle figure.
Yeah, I think the NECA one might be a little stockier just because he has that Mirage look where they just had like kind of tree trunk legs and like they were just like one thickness.
Yeah, he's thick. That Triceratops is a thick figure.
Yeah, whereas like the Playmates one, like, he's freaking huge. He's like, make Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 80s blush, but like,
Right.
he's still like sculpted and lean in areas. Whereas like the Mirage one is just like a boom, like here you go. Here's a wall of a character. Like, so I think the Neca one will be a little girthier, but we don't know. We'll never know because apparently this Triceratons never even going to come out from Super 7, or maybe like a year from today it will come out. But
yeah, so I feel like that's probably what we need to touch on as well. Like over the last year or so, like it just seems like the wheels have really fallen off the wagon at Super 7. Like again, I said the first couple of years they were very consistent, but during that time they only had a couple IPs. They had the one that really started Ultimates was Thundercats, and that's the only other line that's kind of where Turtles is in right now. I think Thundercats has 9 waves announced and Turtles has 10 waves announced, and no one else is really even close to that. But the volume of other brands that they've announced in the last couple of years, I feel like is the reason that our Turtles line is starting to get so fucked up. So I wrote a bunch of stuff down yesterday, and of course I don't have it in front of me, but guess how many IPs Super 7 has for Ultimates?
Let's see. They got Disney, they got Thundercats, Ninja Turtles, Silverhawks, which are actually finally coming out.
And I'm including like lines like Ren and Stimpy, even that just had like 1 wave.
Ren and Stimpy, yeah, they have that. I forgot they did that actually. I'm gonna guess like
because we'll be here all day if you're counting. So
I'm gonna guess 15.
32, I think, is what it was. It was right. It was a little over 30. Is how many different brands they have, and by the time Turtles it came out, they probably had Turtles, Thundercats, and then like the I think they did the Toxic Crusader figure before that.
That's right, yeah.
And they did have some random one-offs around that time, but when they were just really, really, really focusing on Turtles and Thundercats, things seemed to be going well, and it didn't seem like it was until they added all these other IPs. And I mean, we were joking about it yesterday, like they just got the Busy World of Richard Scarry, and I thought for sure that those would be reaction figures. Nope, it's one of those $300 giant figures.
Gigantic thing, yeah.
Like, what are you making over there? I guarantee, because again, like I'm gonna be all over the place now. Like they're starting to cancel lines and figures. Like I have a feeling this Richard Scarry $300 figure is not even gonna get made.
I mean, would that even be if you want that figure, good for you. That's fine. You can do you. I'm not judging. But like, who the fuck even wants that? Like,
that's what I'm saying. I would be very interested to talk to that person and see what kind of person spends $300 on a Busy World of Richard Scarry cat.
And they did that with like a Reptar also from Rugrats. They made this like giant Reptar. Yep. And it's like, again, it was like $300 or something, but it's like, okay, like it's cool, but he's not that detailed. He's just like this smooth.
No, it's green vinyl. And that's what I don't get, the vinyl craze. Like I know it has to do with like the Fasubi, all the Japanese toys and stuff like that. But like, yeah, it does not speak to me. Like I cannot think of a bigger waste of money than spending $300 on a vinyl figure.
Me too. I just want plastic. Plastic's fine for me. But yeah, they I mean, they really got their start. The reason they have Ultimates really is because Mattel had them finish, let them finish like Motu Classics.
Yeah, and they weren't even calling those Ultimates at the time. They still, they were still. Were they calling them Classics when they were doing them?
They were Classics. It was just them continuing the same line that Mattel was doing. And honestly, I want to say Super 7 did more figures for it than Mattel did because they did a lot. Okay. I could be wrong on that, though.
Mattel did a lot. That line is very big. There's a lot of figures in that line.
That is a deep line. That is like the perfect line if you're a Masters fan.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really what got them started, because then the Thundercats was like an offshoot of that. Because I remember when they were calling it Thundercats Ultimates, I remember people like Pixel Dan and Toy Bro being like, oh, I guess that's the terminology they're going to go with. Because like they were kind of seeing it as like, this is a spiritual successor to Motu Classics. And even like some of the body parts of Lion-O originally, I believe, was actually made out of body parts of He-Man, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really? Interesting.
So they were like retooling even from like Motu Classics. And that's really what got them into the Ultimate game, I guess. And I guess they just weren't expecting to get as big as they did, as quickly as they did, and their wallets weren't expecting it also, because it's hard to say because it's almost like they got too big too quick, but it's also like they're not big enough and they don't realize it. They kind of think they're on par with NECA, but
and I know they're not. Like, I know they're not even in the ballpark of what NECA is as a company.
Yeah.
I know they are a much, much, much smaller operation, and I think that's it. Is they're too big for their britches right now. And looping back to a point we talked about with NECA earlier, like NECA dips their toes in the water, but Super7 just gets this IP and they're like, here's a wave of reaction figures, here's a wave of ultimates, here's this $300 figures. We don't know if it worked, but we want them. Like, that's a terrible business plan.
They don't dip their toes in the water. They just straight up scream cannonball and jump right off the diving board. Like, they're just, and yeah, like it's like you said, it's going to be 2 years if they don't delay it again. 2 years for the wave, what was it, 7? Of TMNT Ultimates to come out with Triceraton and Gorilla, to the point where, like, this happened with Silverhawks recently too. Wave 1 and 2 came out at the same time. 2 came out slightly before 1 because like that happened with Thundercats. Like, Wave 2 came out like a year or two after it was supposed to, because like just nothing ever gets made on schedule, and there's just always delays. There's always reworking. There's always legal trouble, it seems, in the background. And a lot of times there's just, like you said, they have to just cancel stuff. They have to be like, we can't make this. Sorry, we thought we could, but realistically we can't make it. When it takes us 2 years to make an action figure, we can't, just make whatever we want. And they love just showing off, like, again, like, what is it? We have like 4 waves of turtles that we know about that we don't have yet.
So, another statistic here. Guess how many? Okay, so individual releases or waves of figures. Like, if you go to their release schedule, every line item there's about 104. So either a wave of a figure or like the glow in the dark Slash is its own line item. You know what I mean? Okay. I counted about 104 altogether. Out of those 104 things that they've announced, guess how many have been released up to this point? And this dates back to when Wave 1 of Thundercats came out. Wow. So since the beginning of the line, 104 waves and or single releases announced. Guess how many they put out?
25.
More than that. It was about half.
Okay.
But that was all. Most of them hit in the first 2 years of them announcing this. Since then, they've announced all this stuff. And I mean, there's over 50 lines or waves or releases that are up in the air right now. 52 of them are just up in the air right now. They've taken orders for 52 things that they have not produced.
That's so insane, man. I don't know. I mean, they're running their own company. I was gonna be like, I don't even know how they're allowed to do that, but it's like, I guess they can do whatever the hell they want to do. I can't even say they got to get it out sooner, because like they got to take the time they got to take. I guess it's like, you just got to stop announcing shit.
You got to stop. That's exactly it. Slow down, get the stuff out that you have, and then announce more figures.
Even if you get a license deal, like, Busy World or something, it's like, you don't have to rush in right away. Just you can lock in that deal, finish a lot of what you're working on, and then be like, okay, now what are we going to do with this deal we got? What are we going to do with this IP?
Now, comparing that to NECA, they essentially have been on this plan now where at Comic-Con, they'll show off essentially a year's worth of figures. And within that year, they space them out almost perfectly to where we're just now pretty well, I would say.
Holothon.
I understand stuff comes in bunches, but we knew what we were getting this year, and we got that throughout the year.
True. That's fair. Yeah, because I mean, I don't think their release schedule is good. I think they overwhelm people and just drop.
They do. NECA is doing too much for sure, and it's again because there's 4 or 5 Turtles lines right now. You know what I mean? They just have so much, and that probably is the. And it's weird that you're complaining about giving us too much, but they are like it's just almost choking you with items at times.
Yeah, they are definitely choking my wallet.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's hard to say which is better. Like, do you want to wait a long time to get less stuff, but it's exactly what you can get, or do you want to get as much stuff as you possibly can all at once, even if you can't afford it? It's a bit of like an awkward situation, but the thing is, like you're saying, NECA, there is no BS with NECA. They deliver what they say they're going to deliver. It's like, you might not like the way they do it. You might not be able to handle the way they do it, but they do what they say they're going to do. They show a bunch of figures and say, this is our slate for 2023. You're going to get Rex 1. You're going to get Bugman. You're going to get all these figures. And here we are, like little more than halfway through the year, and we got all those damn figures. So it's like, Super 7, we're not going to get any figures this year. Like, we got, was that even this year when we got Waves 5?
They both came last year. The only figures we've gotten this year are the glow-in-the-dark figures. They're the only Super 7 TMNT Ultimates that have been released.
Okay, so, like, variants. Like, I don't even really consider those their own thing, which actually I saw them at a comic store near me. They do look really sweet. But
they are very cool. They are. Yeah, but again, that's $70 a pop. Like, that was 100% a cash grab. Like, they clearly needed a cash injection, and they're like, all right, we already have these maids. We'll just inject them with plastic, and then we'll charge $25 more than the original ones cost.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, if they were made out of solid gold, I'd still be questioning that price. Yeah. But yeah, like the Super 7's not going to give us really any new original Turtles figures this whole year, probably. Maybe in the fall.
There's a chance. Everything is scheduled to hit in the fall or later, but like I said, at the rate they're going, I feel like those other waves are going to get pushed back too, because Wave 7 was supposed to hit in May. So they've been just kicking that can down the road. But now once we start to get to the release date of the other lines or the other waves, I feel like those cans are probably going to get kicked down the road as well.
I think so. That always happens. That happens. I mean, I remember last year, like it was like that even happened with Wave 5. Wave 5 got kicked back a little bit when we got close to its release time. If it comes out around like October, November, it's like it's going to be one whole year since we got Super 7 TMNT.
Yeah.
And again, like, just they're so sloppy. We keep getting like 2 waves at a time because
exactly. And then that's even worse, because I guess it's not worse, because then okay, so the good thing about that is, I wouldn't say it's a good thing, but I did wait in that situation because 5 and 6 hit at the same time. So I was going to slow play it. And I did end up getting a lot of figures on sale, which again, isn't necessarily a good thing for Super 7 either, which this reminds me of that point that I was going to bring up earlier. We're coming full circle on this one now. So with Super 7, another thing they did, I think, to hurt their line was they absolutely overproduced their figures. I feel like the first wave was very, very, very successful. The second wave was very successful. So they're like, all right, we're going to rerun these waves. And then they just saturated the market. So that's when everything started going on sale. And then I feel like they just kept basing their numbers off of what they produced for waves 1 and 2. But you can still get wave 1 figures for about $25 to $30 at some places. Like, I feel like that was a bad move that Super 7 made right in the beginning as well, to where NECA almost pissed people off because they undersold so hard or undershot so hard. But Super 7, they almost kind of made their figures seem not as important just by doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Like there's a toy store by me that has 2 glow-in-the-dark mutagen mans, and they're both $40.
Yeah.
Like the Super 7.
I got my second one for $19.99, I think, from Entertainment Earth.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Super 7 stuff on the aftermarket is super cheap. NECA stuff on the aftermarket is obnoxiously expensive.
Yeah. But
I mean, I guess it's supply and demand. I guess more people want the NECA stuff. So I guess this is a perfect time to start talking about the actual products. Like, clearly we've already said that NECA, we think.
Hold on. There's one more thing for NECA that I feel like we did not touch on. Okay. We talked about the difficulty of getting the figures, but my biggest tiff with NECA is just exclusivity. Like every single line other than the Mirage line and the video game line are exclusive to Target or exclusive to Walmart. And I hate that. Like, I don't know why these lines have to be exclusive to these stores.
That's actually a really good point. I didn't even think of that, but that is, like the movie line is like Walmart only. Or like for the movie line started off as a GameStop exclusive, and now it's like a Walmart exclusive. And then I think you can get it in other stores, but like Target is the only place you can get the Toon line.
Yeah.
And randomly some other figures too. And I personally hate Target. I don't like going there. I just think like they're kind of overpriced. They have, I don't like either of those. I'd rather support real stores, but like Walmart and Target has just consumed physical stores. And I feel like you always get a better deal and more selection at Walmart than you do at Target. Target's like the stuffy, pretentious version. They used to call themselves Target because they said they were a designer and shit. It's like, dude, you're the same crap that Walmart's selling. You just have half the selection and double the price. But yeah, I've never really loved Target. So like I go there and like, they just have such a small collector section, and it's like they don't stock very well. And I'm always bummed when it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to go to Target to get this thing, because it's like they're not even gonna freaking have it. I'm gonna go to 5 Targets in one day and not find anything. So the exclusivity thing is a big problem. Super7 doesn't really do retailers. They actually are in Best Buys now.
So there's popping up at Best Buy, and I want to say there was another random store that had them too. But I just went to Best Buy the other day, and the stupid thing about Best Buy is they take off the slip cover and they just sell them without the slip cover too, so you don't even get the whole shebang, which most people just throw their packaging anyway. But if you were an in-package collector, you would never want to go that route.
Yeah, I don't keep them in package, but I still have every Super7 package in my basement, like just in a big pile. The only one I damaged was the Foot Soldier one. I like cut out the name turtle so I could like put it above my my 4 turtles for Super7 on the wall behind it, like a display. And I'm like, I'll do it with the Foot Soldier, because like, who cares? Like I paid like $30 for it, and it's like his arm broke coming out of the box anyway. So like, fuck that Foot Soldier. So I just, like, if I was ever gonna resell this, it's like I couldn't resell that one anyway, so I might as well damage his box. But yeah, they're not really common in retailers. But I will say, in general, if you want to just collect what's easier to collect, Super7 is way easier to collect than Neca.
Outside exclusive figures, you can jump in and get the whole line for way cheaper than what I paid for it.
Yeah, you can get it way cheaper than you would for getting the whole. If you want to get the whole Neca Toon line on the aftermarket, or like what's available in the market now,
thousands at this point,
thousands of dollars, and like just so many figures. And Super7's pretty limited because they only do about 4 or 5 figures a wave. Like usually it's like 4 figures and like a special variant. There's a couple extra special ones here and there. But for the most part, it's like there's not that many Super7 figures. It's a pretty small toy line as far as toy lines go.
Now, I think we officially can switch gears to actually talking about the figures. So, yeah, let's start off. Again, we're talking about Super7. We'll keep it going with Super7. So, clearly, the thing that made the Super7 line so successful right off the bat was that it was completely following the Playmates aesthetic. And not only that, but the Horsemen were the sculptors on this line in the beginning. And I still think that these are some of my favorite just sculpts action figures of all time. Even the first wave, like I still think they're some of my favorite for sure.
I think, yeah, it's debatable. I might say, obviously, I'm always going to like Playmates the best, like the vintage Playmates, because of nostalgia and stuff. But I might say I think these are the best looking Turtles figures of all time. Like any of the characters, the best looking just brand Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures of all time. There might be some other ones that might be just as good, but if someone asked me, what do you think are the best looking Turtles figures, I'd probably just instantly say Super7.
I think I would at least say they're the funnest. Like I look at them and I'm just like, damn, those are some fun action figures. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just love like how big and chunky they are. They capture a lot of like what we thought the toys looked like when we were kids, the Playmates ones, like where our hands were like half the size of our hands now. So you held those figures, they seemed a lot bigger. You know, your imagination kind of filled in like some of the detail as when we were, you know, talking about Rad Plastic, and we were saying how you know, when you go from a prototype, each version, you kind of lose more and more of the detail. So the final figure is like it has like way less like blobby kind of detail, because you know Chris Fawcett was showing us like the original prototypes of Pizza Face stuff, and there was like so much like sharp detail all over him and stuff. These now have that level of like sharp tight detail and stuff, and they really are just like the ultimate versions, ironically, like no pun intended, the ultimate versions of the Playmates figures. Yeah, like I said, when I first saw the line shown off, I actually wasn't that interested, because I was like, well, I have the Playmates figures, I want to see new iterations of these characters. But they just won me over when I saw them in hand and saw like how cool they actually were. Yeah, that's definitely how they won everyone over at first.
And now I feel like they're trying to, I don't know, trying is not the right word. So now I feel like they're starting to maybe move away from that aesthetic. And I feel like this is what's the most worrisome about the waves not coming out is I just want to see what this wave is going to be like. I just want to see if there's changes, because my biggest fear for this line is that they do move completely away from this aesthetic. And then honestly, I'm out if they move away from it. Like I personally do not think Super 7 has the talent in-house to make the figures that I want. Like, I just, after seeing the Wave 10 releases, once you, even just take that Casey out of there, like, it's just very generic to me. And for a line that just started so special, like, I don't know. I don't really like the direction that these figures are moving in.
I'd have to see, because again, like I've said, I know we have a bit of a disagreement on this. I freaking love that gorilla figure. It looks so cool. It's a shame I'm going to be 70 when it comes out. But like, if they did that kind of like original, like those kinds of original figures, I would still probably still keep collecting the line. I'd be a little bummed that I didn't get a lot of like the Playmates versions, like, you know, because now that we have a whole collection of that, it'd be kind of lame that just stops all of a sudden. But I would still be down for figures like Gorilla. But yeah, those Wave 10 figures, though, if we're getting like, you know, pretty emo Rat King, or we're getting that like just absolutely pointless Ninja April and stuff like that, if we're getting those, like I'm out then. Like, I really don't care for the line then if that's the case. And I don't, like you were saying, I don't know if those figures even were the Four Horsemen. I think they were just in.
I'm positive they're off the line. That was one of the rumors that were originally circulating with all like the Playmates buzz and them not being able to do those designs anymore. And like I said, I feel like you can just tell, like, they just don't seem like the same figures. Like, there's just something lacking, and I can't really put my finger on what it is, but maybe it's just because there's so many human characters. They just look flatter to me. I don't know. They just don't look like how Wave 2 Bebop does. Like, just this figure that is just dripping with detail and style. And it took the Playmates figure and it made it better. It is absolutely a better version of that figure. And it might not be the case with every figure, but like with Bebop and Muckman, it just brought out what the original sculptors for the Playmates line wanted to do. And they're just, Bebop and Muckman are like, sculpt wise, two perfect figures for me.
I agree. I think those are two of my favorites also. Every now and then they just nail it with a figure. Like, I think Slash, I think Ray Fillet, Leatherhead, Muckman, Bebop, Mutagen Man. Like, there's just certain ones that they just, usually the big chunky guys. No, but even Scratch is awesome. Like,
exactly. That was a figure. It's one of the few figures that I was just like, whatever, I don't have any nostalgia towards this character, and I got him. I'm like, this is a pretty damn good figa
Yeah, it's a really good figure. He's a little big. I think he's a little bigger than I expected him to be, but like, they do a great job with a lot of those. They are like the original figure, but so much better. I mean, that Leatherhead is like, oh my God, that is like a million times better than the Playmates.
Exactly. Line. That took literally probably my least favorite mainline character and made him a more, I'd probably call him mid-tier in the line for me now. I definitely probably wouldn't even put him in my bottom.
For the Super 7, I'd probably put him in like higher tier than that. I don't even know. I like very lowest, like high mid. I don't know. Like, he's awesome. And they do a lot of things that we wanted. Like, now Slash, you know, the original one, he was so much smaller than everyone else. Now he's like this bulky freaking wall of a turtle. Yeah, like I absolutely love the majority of the Super 7 waves. I still, like I said, I think they're some of the best looking the Turtles figures ever. It depends on your preference, what kind of Turtles figures you want. But if you want like classic Turtles from our childhood era Turtles, you'll be pressed to find better looking figures.
I think if you put a gun to my head and you were like, all right, you can only keep one version of like Raph, it would either be the Playmates Raph or the Super 7 Raph. That is definitely what it would come down to for me. That is how much I do like the aesthetics of these figures.
My own nostalgia would have to just make me go with the Playmates, but it's like, if it was based sheerly on quality, I'd go with the Super 7 one.
And see, that's why it's actually like a race for me. And like, I don't even have Neca in the equation, even with the movie Raph, which I think is one of my favorite figures of all time. But like with the Super 7 figures, I can look at it and I can still get the same vibe that I get with the Playmates figures, to where NECA figures, I don't get that. I see it as something else, but to me, there's just this link between Super 7 and Playmates. Like, I feel like I can look at my Super 7 and it still makes me appreciate the Playmates line.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense because NECA's not trying to do the Playmates turtles. I do think my favorite, to kind of go into NECA a little bit, I guess already. My favorite looking NECA line by far is the movie line. I love the NECA
I think it's
line.
their bread and butter. I think what NECA does best is their live stuff. And again, because that's what they started with. They started with the horror and the alien and the predator.
Yeah.
So like that's where a lot of their talent has been doing this whole time. And honestly, it's crazy because the cartoon stuff just seems so much more simple, you know what I mean? And maybe just that's it. Maybe that's why it's like a hard comparison, because the cartoony stuff just looks very cartoony, to where the live action figures are like, damn, this looks like a shrunken down version of these suits.
Yeah, I think I have the Universal Monster Turtles. I have the regular Universal Monster figures, like the Ultimates that they have, which are all awesome. Except for, actually, I got the Bride of Frankenstein recently. I'm not crazy about that one. It looks like Hershey just makes for a pretty boring.
Dude, I saw someone's posting pictures. That's why I went to Best Buy the other day. It's been on clearance there for like $5.99 or something.
Oh,
like
really?
That.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, my store didn't have any left, and it was still only $27. But yeah,
I wish I got her there. Then I paid a lot more than that. But yeah, I like the Universal Monster ones, the horror ones in general, the Turtles monster ones, and the Turtles movie ones. Like those, they look better when they do realistic stuff, I think. I think like NECA's better at doing that, like realistic, gritty looking kind of action figure. And I think those are definitely their best looking figures. And, stuff like the Universal Monster Turtles, they're just showing off. Like those are great sculpts. Like,
so, and that's where I'm just like, damn, NECA just has way more talent than Super 7 does working there, because those are completely original and I love them. Like I fought getting into that line because I'm like, I don't need to collect every Turtles line, but those figures just look so good. Like I just got the Donnie recently, and I mean, he's right on par with the Mikey. I think I like him a little bit better. And yeah, even the Raph is a great figure. I feel like I've just had him so long, he just doesn't feel as special to me. But yeah, that line, it definitely has its highs and lows, but the highs in that line, like all four of the Turtles figures are fucking amazing.
Yeah, I think the whole line's pretty good. I think Splinter's the weak link. Yeah, they look fantastic. They don't look quite as good as like Legions, like Mythic Legions or something. They're not quite at that level of like professionalism.
Yeah,
but they're closer to that, in that they have those very creative like kind of sculpts and everything, and those crazy like textures and realistic color schemes and everything. I would say still there's something that looks a little cheaper about them than Super 7. Super 7's plastic and paint just looks a little nicer than NECA's. It just looks like NECA's still, like, they have like a bit of like a dry like brittleness to their plastic. I don't know if that's a good way to describe it.
So I know what you're talking about, and I always make this comparison between like when the Toon line started and where it's at now. Like the figures feel a lot more rubbery now, especially on like their clothing and their body, to where like if you take the Triceraton, his arm just feels dry, you know what I mean? Like his leg feels dry. I don't know what it is, but it almost feels like hard clay, kind of. I don't know if hard clay, but like a resin or something like that. Like
that's what they feel like. Because I remember when I was a kid, I used to like, get like Sculpey and like stuff and like make little clay figures and then put them in the oven, and then they turn into like that dry, hard stuff.
Yep, that's kind of what it reminds me of.
Yeah, and the reason why a lot of them have that mushy, rubbery texture now, though, is because like their torso is just an overlay. Like you have like Rhino Man, that's just an overlay. And like
because he's squishy, you can like push into him.
Yeah, and underneath they're just using the same buck they use for like every single freaking figure. Yep. So like even like Burn Thompson is like mostly soft and squishy and stuff. And it is kind of like it is a cheap like reason why it's like that. Whereas Super 7 doesn't really do that. Super 7, everything's a unique sculpt, and it's hard sculpted plastic. So like in ways like that, I can say I think Super 7 stuff is a bit more premium, because definitely the Universal Monsters and stuff, NECA does less of that. They do more of like what Super 7 does. But for the Toon line, they do cheap out a bit with a lot of them. And I don't love the way that line looks as much as I do the Super 7 line or the movie line from NECA. And that, like, I get it's going to look simple. It's going to look like cell shading with the ink lines and everything. But you look at something like Rhino Man, and it's just such an empty figure. It's just like this all yellow torso with this like barely detailed emblem in the middle. And, you know, you look at Mighty Hog, and he has like what's supposed to be like a tied cape around his neck, but it's just like a red piece of fabric, and they just cut like two points into it, and they're huge, and they don't even look right. And, you know, Electro Zapper, I looked at him in the cartoon, and he has it like tied around his neck too. And here it's just like a loop. There's no tie whatsoever. And it's like, they do definitely simplify things more and cheap out on detail a lot. And that could just to save money and cut corners. And they got to do what they got to do. I'm not saying that like, oh, you know, they're ripping us off. I'm not saying that, but you know, if you want 5 million unique characters a year in a toy line, they got to cut some corners. Right. But I do think like Super 7 usually doesn't cut those corners. And yes, we get a lot less figures, but their figures stand out a bit more on their own. Whereas like the NECA one, there's just something a little plain about them. I don't know. And
so I definitely know what you mean. And I think it's because like realistically, that cartoon is a very simplistically drawn cartoon after the first season. Like it like if you take the Muckmans and compare them, like it's no comparison which one's better. Like, I mean, the Super 7 one crushes it. And part of that is just to blame on the designs that they're basing them off of, though. You know what I mean? Because the Playmates action figure is much more exciting looking than the cartoon version of Muckman to begin with. But that being said, I do think that the Super 7 figure, which again, it's a $20+ more expensive figure, should be better, but it is significantly better. And I don't think there's any instance where I think a NECA figure 1-to-1 is better than a Super 7 figure right off the top of my head. I can't think of anything that would probably make me say that. Maybe depending on your taste, the Shredders, maybe if you just don't like the style of the original Playmates figure, but I prefer that figure all day 1-to-1.
Me too. I think the Super 7 took the original Shredder from the toy line that the original toy line I wasn't crazy about, and they basically fixed everything about him.
Yeah, it's still just weird that he's wearing a cape tied around his waist with his chest blasted. Like it's just that's kind of a weird aesthetic.
Yeah, it is. I actually just leave it open, like he's just Bruce Lee shirtless with a cape on. Is how I leave it.
The thing about the NECA Toon line is, the reason it is my favorite line is because of the volume. Like I do think that's what makes it great. Is it's the best world building line we're ever gonna get for Turtles. Like the Playmates line was deep, but it was a lot of sublines. To where this line we are getting, I mean, the deepest of deep cuts at this point. To the point where you and I, who consider ourselves pretty big fans, are starting to get characters that we can't remember. Which is, I never thought we would get there, honestly.
I never did either. And I think that really is the reason why I've gone so deep in the NECA Toon line, why I love it so much, is because just the sheer volume, the amount of figures, the amount of the caliber of characters they're choosing, like these crazy choices. It's just, that's really what sells the whole line. And they're done competently enough. You know, they're not like they're not crappy looking. They look what the characters are supposed to look like. But I do just kind of wish they'd like, I get that a lot of the characters' original designs were very simplistic, but I do just kind of wish they plussed them a little bit. Like I have to say, I don't love the way they do the coloring. I know it's meant to look like cell shading, but I've brought this up many times before. I have like these Bebop and Rocksteady like statues that are based on their 87 cartoon design. They did one of Shredder and Krang and then the 4 Turtles as well. And they were sold in GameStops for like $50.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and they look, when I got those, I'm like, oh wow, like the NECA Bebop and Rocksteady don't look that good. And but you look at the statues and they're shaded. They have like faded shading on them and like gradients and everything, and they look incredible. They don't have all the hard black lines. And they also look like they jumped right out of the TV show. Like they actually look more like they jumped out of the TV show than the NECA ones do. So it's like, I don't think we need this like chalky hard black line and like simplistic color with dark on the back and light on the front. Like I don't love that aesthetic. I'm used to it at this point. But I remember when that line first came out, I really didn't like the way it looked, because it was like, I was thinking like, I know you're trying to make it look like exactly how they looked in the animation cells, but I feel like even back then, like if someone tried to make them perfectly accurate, there would have been some artistic interpretation where like you plus them a little bit, because this is a figure. Like this is an actual physical figure. You can do things the animators wanted to do that they couldn't do back in the show.
So, like, even for these figures, I feel like it's just something as simple as like a wash. And again, it's because that's not the aesthetic, but like the monsters line, those have great shading on them. The movie line has great shading on the figures, and I think that makes a big difference in detailing for sure. So that's why I feel like it is just getting back to like you said, you feel like they could plus it, but they really were just staying true to the designs. And again, the cartoon aesthetic is just not dark or gritty, and that's really what does make for better, more detailed action figures at the end of the day. Like, you got that Killer Crocker, and I went in on the Samurai Rabbit, whatever it is, and I'm just very excited to get that figure because, like I said, they fit in with like the movie figures to where they're just dark and they have this wash and they look gritty. And again, even if they're not those characters, that aesthetic is just so cool that I can pretend that it is that character because that figure itself is just so badass.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think there is a way to do it that's not necessarily dark and gritty. Like, again, like the Bebop and Rocksteadies that I have, like, just do a wash that just looks like, you know, like the front of the VHS tapes, they had like the faded, you know, shading on them and everything. Just make it look like that. It makes them look a little more detailed. It makes the sculpt pop more. There's probably a lot of nice stuff in these sculpts that doesn't even stand out because of the bland paint job. And I think, like, if you just let yourself do that, they just let themselves, you know, like, change the colors a little bit where they don't look exactly like how they were painted in the cartoon, you could end up making your figures look a lot better and actually bring a lot more attention to your sculpts. Because there's a lot of times where I get these NECA figures and I get them out of the package, I put them on the shelf, and they admittedly are pretty dull looking on their own. They look good with the rest of the collection, but if you look at it just as a figure, it's like, this looks pretty dull, honestly. And they just don't bounce. When I take out a Super7 figure or one of the NECA Universal figures or movie figures, I take that out. I'm just staring at it like, whoa, for a while. Like, it's just like, you feel like you're holding something special in your hands. I pull out the Toon ones. I'm like, I got this guy, put him on the shelf and like move on. And it's like, I'm not trying to diss on the line. I love the line. It's the most impressive, you know, Turtles line we've had possibly ever. But I just always felt that they could have gone a little extra with it, and they just didn't. And I don't like the emulation of the arcade color scheme. Also, the way they did like the pixels, but they don't actually look like real pixels because they're rounded figures and they have like diamonds on their chests. And I'd rather just have good like sculpts that look correctly, color schemes that look correctly, but paint jobs that complement and plus the figures a little bit.
I don't mind the aesthetic as much as you do, but I definitely understand where you're coming from. And I feel like it's one of those things where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, because if you try to change things up, people are gonna be like, well, this doesn't look like the cartoon and that's what I want. And I feel like it is one of those situations where they're just like, okay, this worked what we tried to do, so that's just what we're gonna keep running with. And I guarantee with the amount of Toon figures that they put out, like they probably do rattle them out a little bit quicker than they do like the Universal monster figures. Like,
oh, definitely, yeah.
You know, they're spending way more time on those designs than they are a Toon figure. And again, it is the volume, because it is just crazy the amount of Toon figures we get in a year now. And I do feel like it is just kind of a give and take there. Like we could get less, maybe they would be a little bit better, but I don't know, because like I said, the main thing with me is I like just the amount of figures we get, and I never really get too hung up on any one character because, again, the volume is just so deep. Like, you don't really have a lot of individual centerpieces in that collection. Like you brought up earlier, like if you just had, like if I just had my desk open and I just had Jersey Red, Dumbo on my shelf, like, would they look cool together? Like, is that a cool looking display? No, but together with the gang, they do look kind of cool.
I do think that is a bit of a complaint, though. I think that is a bit of a flaw in NECA's part. Is like, you should be making cool products, not just a great quantity of products that when you get enough of them, they look cool. Like, if you're expecting us to spend all this money on this stuff, they should be worth the price on their own.
Okay, so the one like argument I have for this is Pops. Like, any pop by itself, you're just like, whatever, this doesn't look cool. But if you just see an entire wall of pops, like it looks kind of fun. You know what I mean? When there's just 1,000 of them all lined up there, like, and I don't know what it has to be that case. Like, why do some things have to have that? And again, it probably is because they're just not as exciting in general. So you do need the volume to round it out.
Yeah, we're like, I feel like if you only got Muckman from Super 7, that was the only figure you had, it would look awesome.
Yeah,
you just
put it in a cube by itself,
room.
put it on a little floating shelf by itself, looks amazing.
Yeah, exactly. If you just had Jersey Red and you just put her on a shelf, people would come over and be like, what the hell is this? Like,
right? That's the thing too, because like I ragged on Super 7's Wave 10, but there are NECA figures that I bought, like the Wife Beater White Trash Casey. Every time I look at this collection, I'm like, one day I'm taking this thing out of here. One day I'm gonna get rid of this, but I can't even take a figure out of my NECA collection at this point. Like, I just don't have the heart to do it. But I look at that figure and I'm like, why did I buy this? Like, what is wrong with me?
I'm gonna be honest, you did your recent video that was like your Turtles collection again, and that figure just stood out like a sore thumb the whole video.
Right?
Anytime it was in frame, I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's just a dude in a wife beater.
I know, it's so terrible. And like, you just know he's not wearing underwear under those sweatpants, and he's just flopping everywhere. Like, I hate that figure so much.
Yeah, I mean, NECA, I do think there is a balance to quality over quantity, and I definitely think NECA goes for quantity. Not saying they don't have quality. Like I said, they have some
because they definitely do have quality. Again, their figures are great, but it all comes back to a NECA Toon figure cannot stand up to a Super 7 figure on its own.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a balance you need to strike with quality and quantity, and I don't think either company has it. I think Super 7 has the quality, but vastly behind on the quantity. I think NECA has the quantity, but their quality isn't quite up to snuff as like I would like it to be. So it's like they're a little.
Yeah, for me, it's not as far off. But I feel like you're a more opinionated and person in general, to where I'm a little bit more go with the flow. I feel like you have a lot more feelings than I do about most things. I feel like
I guess we'll cut to the crap. I'm more of an asshole than you are. I complain and bitch about stuff more than you do.
Well, it's just the thing is, typically we're talking about things I like. There's a lot of things I bitch and complain about that I don't like, but I just don't really talk about those things much. And for me, it is mostly like when I'm into something, I try not to think about the things that I hate about it as much as I like. And like kind of like wrapping this all up, like that's the most frustrating part with Super 7 is like, I feel like I'm complaining about Super 7 so much, and I hate it. I don't want to complain about them. I want them to do well. I want them to succeed, and that's just the frustrating part. Like, I don't want the Super 7 line as it is to go away. I want it to come back better than ever, but at the same time, like, if I don't like where something's going, and if I don't feel like a company's doing a good job, I feel like it should be said and not just swept under the rug.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I love their product. Like I said, I think I would say that's my favorite toy line for modern Turtles. I think I like that one even more than the NECA movie one, maybe, because it's like it just got so many more crazy characters, and they're so bright and big and chunky and awesome. But I love them so much, but at the same time, I don't want to enable people for bad behavior. And if companies, I'm not like slapping Brian Flynn on the wrist, you're bad boy. I'm not doing that, but it's like, I think people need to be called out when they're not doing things right, because if you just keep letting people do stuff wrong, then you're just going to keep getting disappointed, and they're just going to keep getting worse and worse with it. And the Super 7 Turtles line has been getting worse and worse with how it's released and how it's handled and how it's just being shown off and hyped so early and breaking promises. And it's you have to mention it. You can't just let that pass. And
no, because I mean, honestly, if we're not talking about this, we have nothing to talk about for Super 7 right now, essentially, which is a huge bummer that we pretty much can only talk about what they're not doing because they're not doing anything. And I meant to answer this earlier too, because you asked the question, like, what's better, like having to like being able to get it easily and waiting, or getting something up front and having to go into debt to get it. But honestly, that's the route I would go, because I'm excited about NECA right now. I'm excited about almost everything they're doing, and I'm just not excited about Super 7 right now because nothing's happening. And again, I'm not doing that because I'm like, I fucking hate Super 7. It's just because they are disappointing me. They're not doing anything to make me excited. And other than looking at the figures that I have, which is what we should be doing a lot more of in general, is being happy with the things that we do have and not always worrying about what's coming. Like, because that's what makes me get to the point where I'm like, I'm never just going to be like, fuck Super 7, because I look at what they've given me and I love what they've given me and I just want more of it. That's it.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. It's like, if they stop the line now, I'd be mad, but I'd be fine with what I have. They gave us enough where I'm fine.
Yeah. There would definitely be some holes. It would definitely still feel like an incomplete line, but like, I love the way my Super 7 display looks right now. Like, I am happy with it.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's my favorite display in my room, honestly. Like, my favorite line is the Playmates one, but I like the way the Super 7 display looks the best. I think it's like almost the centerpiece of my room.
Yeah, because I do just feel like just the way they display, like I think they're the perfect size for display. Honestly, I don't know what it is. Like, and again, I feel like I'd be afraid to start dabbling in 6 scale things, but I feel like they would work out really well too. But I feel like that's maybe why Playmates just doesn't. Playmates was never made to display, to where I feel like Super 7 was made to display.
They're display versions of your childhood toys.
Yes.
I mean, I look over at my NECA shelf and it's awesome. But aside from like, Pizza Monster, Usagi, because his white is just so bright, the Triceratons, I don't notice a lot of the little figures. A lot of them don't stand out. Like, a lot of them get lost in the crowd. I look at Super 7, every character pops.
Yep, you don't miss anybody. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
So when it comes down to, I guess, if we just really want to get down to Super 7 versus NECA, I can't really say who the winner is. I will say NECA overall is the winner just because the business practices. And like we said, so I said they were on like, either side of the extreme, and I want something in the middle, the balance of quantity and quality. But I think NECA's quality is nowhere near as low as Super 7's quantity is. So it's like, NECA's got the quantity and they got the quality. It's just not as high as Super 7's quality. Super 7 has the high quality, but the quantity is like so far, just so fucked in every way. So, and it's like, they're just not as reliable as NECA. They're not as honest as NECA. We don't know what to expect. I mean, even early on, the April figure was completely retooled by the time we got her. The heads,
and they never even said anything about it. And luckily, it was a better version, so everybody was happy. But then you come around to things like Ace, Duck, and Slash, which you pulled the switcheroo on their colors, and a lot of people weren't happy about that.
Yeah, Slash, I think, looked better with the dark skin.
I honestly do too. I think he looks like a more intimidating figure. I prefer the dark Slash.
I do too, and I think it makes like all like the hot pink and stuff pop on him more.
Yeah, I think so too.
But the Ace Duck, I know you said you don't have a problem with it. I just, the fact that like his bandolier, his coat, and his hat are all the same color, whereas in the original he had that dark brown coat, and then he had like that greenish mustardy kind of hat and bandolier, and then it's like even like the orange of his bill and his feet is so muted and yellow. Like everything just comes off as this like creamy yellow color, and he just the only thing that pops on him is the blue. Whereas I look at the original, wherever the hell he is back there, and it's like every color just pops on him. The dark brown makes the bright yellow like feathers pop so much, and the orange stands out so much against it. Where that it's just like this bland blend of just creamy brownish yellows. Like it's just not that appealing looking. But yeah, I don't really think NECA ever does that, where they give us a product and it doesn't look like the prototype.
No, literally, what we see at Comic-Con is what we get later in the year, with a few exceptions. I think, like, I want to say the Splinter prototype from the comic book line might have been different. He might have had a different gray robe originally. I could be wrong on that one.
I actually don't remember, actually.
Yeah, I think there might be a couple tweaks like that. But you're right. For the most part, NECA gives what they say they're going to give. And for me, it is just a no-brainer right now. Like, NECA is doing a better job in every way, shape, or form for me. I feel like they've done a good job of listening to the fans. I feel like they've done a good job of putting... And again, their stuff's never going to be perfect because, again, they do the exclusive bullshit, and it always adds an element of frustration. But compared to where it was 2 or 3 years ago, I feel like they have been moving in a positive direction, and Super 7, unfortunately, is moving in a negative direction.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Super 7, like a lot of it is like we were saying yesterday. I think like they just got on a high of like how many licenses they could get. And there's like, it's like a little kid with ideas, like, "Ooh, I want to do this and this."
That's
and this.
how it
Oh,
is.
this
That's
and that."
exactly how I feel. Is they got all these ideas, but they don't know how to follow through on it. Like,
Yeah. And I mean, NECA, we didn't even touch on Super7 Reaction is huge, and they do like Halloween masks of Universal monsters and Godzilla characters and shit and t-shirts and stuff. And they just do so much. But like NECA, they started their company, you know, like I said, I had re-releases of the Hasbro Nightmare Before Christmas figures from 1993 and 2003. That's what NECA was doing. They were repackaging those and selling those. And like they started off doing the cheaper stuff that they could afford to do, and they built a lot of money doing that, and they built up to this point where Super7 just immediately was like, we're gonna do all these pie in the sky ideas whether we can or not. And like NECA played the long game, and I think it paid off. I think NECA just is more marketing savvy than Super7.
Yeah, they're definitely a better ran company without a doubt, for sure.
Yeah. So I would say, yes, in the battle, NECA wins, but it's not that black and white. I would say, if you asked me which is the better toy line, I would say Super7 personally. But if you asked me who's the better company and what's like the more exciting line to be following right now, without a fucking doubt, it is NECA.
Yeah. And again, I'm sure this is a topic we are going to talk about many times because Super7 and NECA figures are a big part of both of our lives. So yeah, I'm sure we will be back to these companies in one way, shape, or form down the road again. But yeah, this is a really fun episode. I'm very glad we got to do this. I was pumped up for it last week. I thought that's what we were doing like 2 weeks ago. But yeah, glad we got to get this one done.
Yeah, so look forward to Playmates versus Loyal Subjects. I'm kidding. We had no plans for that. But yeah, thanks for listening to us go on about this. That's about, I guess, everything we have to say about Super7 and NECA. So have a good one, guys.
Yep. Peace.